Hi, everybody. Welcome to our virtual information session. The last week of May, getting ready to go into Memorial Day weekend. I'm Jim Hennessy. I lead the marketing and recruitment team here at Code Platoon. I'm going to kind of guide you through this journey with my tag team partner, Kayla Elkin. And Kayla, introduce yourself.
I'm Kayla. I'm on the marketing team at Code Platoon. I'm really excited to hear your questions and help answer them today.
And this is really casual. Feel free to unmute and ask a question as we go along, or type them in the chat. Kayla will monitor those and will relate the questions. But I did want to start with some context because one of the biggest things that um, there's a lot of things that people are trying to understand as they go through or their journey, discovering their interest in Code Platoon or a career in tech, and getting into our program. And so, one of the big processes that we get is questions around our admissions process and how that goes. And so I figured I'd talk about that, and then hopefully that can spur some conversation and questions, and then we can focus on answering everybody's questions. So, hopefully, you are here because you learned about Code Platoon. You have an interest in getting into a career in tech or growing your tech learning, which is great. And hopefully you're part of the military community because that's the only community that we serve. And that makes our program unique. We are here for veterans, active duty service members, military spouses, and military dependents and only. So we built our entire program around that and getting them into the program. So how do you get into the program? Is the big question that we always get. And that is through our application process. So once you've decided, hey, this is something that you're wanting to pursue, um, we use the term journey, and we want to help you through that journey. And so that typically starts with our application, and our application is in two parts, if you think about it this way. The first part is some basic information. We want to get to know you, who you are, how you identify in terms of being a spouse, and then how you want to attend the program. What do you want to learn? We have two curriculums, full stack software engineering, and we have a AI Cloud and DevOps engineering curriculum. So part one tells us what you want to learn, how you want to learn it. I want to attend virtually. You can attend our full stack program uh, in person here in Chicago at our classroom. People travel in for that, but you don't have to. You can attend it remotely anywhere around the world. And then also what format? Hey, I want to do it immersive. I want to get through the class, get my learnings, and start looking for a job within 15 weeks. Or hey, I've got other things going on in life, so I want to do this on a part-time basis, evening and weekends. Um, and then we'll try to figure out, how you want to get there. If you have VA benefits that you want to use to cover your tuition, or if you want to use one of our scholarships that everyone's eligible for a scholarship, figure out how much scholarship is available to you to get you through. Because our goal is to get you into this program without hardly any cost, where possible. So that's part one of the application. That's all it is. And it's an easy first step for everybody to do. Now, if you notice, nothing in part one of the application really talked about um, any kind of coding knowledge. And we know that some people that are on this call may have dabbled in coding. You may have just played around, made video games on your own. Maybe you watched some YouTube videos. Maybe you took a couple of computer science classes in college. So as we move into part two of the application, before we even get to part two of the application, we do want to have an understanding of everybody's level of coding experience. And that's important because we want you to be successful in the program, and we want you to be successful from day one in the classroom. So we need to do some sort of assessment on, what existing coding skills that you might have. And you might be saying, oh, I don't have any. We can help you get there. But we kind of look at things like, hey, maybe everybody should have, the easy way to frame this is maybe everybody should have about 100 hours of coding experience. It sounds like a lot, but you may have taken classes and structured learning may have, made that different. You may have watched a whole bunch of YouTube videos or taken a free code camp course on beginnings of Python or JavaScript. So like we want to understand that, and this gives us an opportunity to kind of do that. And before you move into step two of the application. Um, so that is a key point. I want to stop there and kind of talk about a little bit, Kayla, if there's any questions or anything about how we determine that level of coding experience or how we help you get it if you're sitting there going, I've never, I could barely turn on my computer, which would be me. I'm not a coder. I will tell you that. Any questions, Kayla, up to this point?
None yet. Is the second part of the application just an assessment, or will it determine if you are accepted into the program?
Great question. All right. So the second part of the application, there are three coding exercises that every person needs to complete. And they're, if you actually think about it in process, they're not technically part of the actual physical application for part two, but you got to do them, kind of leading into part two. We use an assessment tool called CoderBytes. You can go in there and there's three exercises. And what we're looking for is, we're not looking for a score. They're not, even though the software kind of gives you a score, we're really looking just to understand what you know about coding. And in any coding language, there's three key principles. Those are lists, variables, and functions. And so these exercises are meant for you to demonstrate your level of learning. You can practice them as many times as you want in there. And then once you feel comfortable with the answers, that's when you actually start part two of the application. And part two is what's used to determine acceptance into the program. So part two, we're going to ask you to kind of just reconfirm your information, like, because you may have decided, hey, I want to go full time as opposed to part time since I started my application. We're going to ask you a couple of long form questions. I hate the word essay because that sounds like school and a test. No, we're going to ask you why you want to go to Code Platoon. What do you want to do when you graduate? And we're going to ask, things like that. And then just tell us a little bit about yourself. Hey, I've been in the Army for 10 years. I've worked, as an accountant, and I found it boring. And so I decided I want to switch to tech. Real easy questions, just so we can get an understanding of you and who you are. And then the last part of part two is we ask everybody to do a 5-minute video. Now, it can sound intimidating, especially to somebody like me who's in my 50s and I go like, I don't do TikTok and things like that. It's nothing like that. You're not being judged on the quality. We're not giving away Academy Awards. We ask you to do a 5-minute video that does two things. First of all, you are going to, the first half of the video, we want you to explain one of the coding challenges that you completed on CoderByte. Really, just we want to hear problem solving. Like, how did you do it? You might not have gotten the answer like perfect, but what we want to know is kind of how you approached it, what it means, and how you thought through it, because those are the things we're going to teach you how to do in the classroom. And so if you have great skills in reasoning, or you can explain it, even if it's wrong, hey, you're a good person for the classroom because we're understanding your learning pattern. The second part of the video is kind of similar, but it doesn't relate to your challenges. It's just telling us about how you approach a situation. Like, tell us a story about something you had to overcome, and how you approached it, why you did it, and celebrate the success. We just want to get to know everybody. So that's all that's in part two of the application. So you've demonstrated your skills in these exercises. You talked about them a little. You told us a little bit more about you, and then you hit submit, and that's the entire application process. What happens then? So that's the process. Before I jump to what happens next, are there any questions before I jump to kind of what happens next based
Yes.
on just the
So
application?
someone asked, could you go into more depth about the guided application process, how to participate in it, and how that applies the aptitude portion?
Awesome. So good question. We did have a program called Guided Application. It no longer exists. It, to be honest, it made it more confusing and difficult for people to get into our program. The goal was a faster way to learn, but we found out that it wasn't the best way for somebody to get into the program. So what we've done instead Guided, there's one application process now, and it's just how I described it. But we have taken and we've added a free course that we call Intro to Coding Live. The original point of the guided application was to help people who had zero coding skills and to do it in a compressed time frame. And we found out that that didn't work, and we want, our biggest goal is we want everybody in the program. So we want you to set everybody up for success. So what we've done instead is we started a program, same length as guided application, all of that kind of stuff, called Intro to Coding Live. We offer it 3 times a year for free. The next session is coming up starting June 9th. It's 3 nights a week, Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, from 5:30 to 8:30 Central Time for 3 weeks. We'll get into all the details. Kayla's going to put the link in the chat so that everybody can have it. But the intent of that class is to give you all of those basic things that we just talked about that we want you to demonstrate in the coding exercises. Foundational understanding of lists, variables, and functions. All right. And we're doing it in June, which like our next deadlines aren't until August. What happens is you learn those things, and then remember I talked about 100 hours. That's when you practice them. It gives you time to practice them, to understand them, to play around in CoderByte, and then work on submitting step 2. So you're going to get the knowledge ahead in June, but the next deadlines aren't until August, or even further than that if you're looking at a different cohort. So guided application, great question. We're teaching the same things, but we found a better way from talking to our students and going through the program to do that. Now, I know that maybe not everybody can make the Intro to Coding session live sessions. Those are instructor led, they're interactive, you answer questions, you can network with people. Well, if you can attend some of them, I encourage you to sign up for the course, because all of them we record, just like we're recording this one, and they all live on our YouTube channel. We also plug everybody into a Slack community where you can work there and network with other students to enhance your learning and develop a community. So you can still get the information even if you say to me, hey, I can't attend online sessions. So hope that answers the guided application question.
Absolutely. I think it does. Any other questions before we continue on?
Okay, cool. Well, I want to tell you what happens once you hit submit. Like I said, we want to get everybody possible into this program. This is why we do it. We're nonprofit. We're mission based. We believe in this community and the things that they can do in the tech world. So what's going to happen? We use rolling admissions. So within a couple days of you submitting your step 2, your videos, your answers to the questions, and saying, hey, look at my coding challenges because I think they're good. You're going to get an answer back from one of our instructors who's reviewed your application. And it's going to be one of 2 things. It could be a conditional acceptance, and that means your application met all of our criteria. It's conditional only from the sense of we ask everybody, once they're conditionally accepted, to do a live technical interview with an instructor. It's not any new information. It's kind of the same concepts that you talked about in the coding exercises. And the reason that we do this is, in a world of AI, it's just showing that you actually know the information that you put on your application, that you didn't put it into chat GPT and say, answer this coding question for me. There's other ways that we could tell that too, but that you didn't copy it, that you didn't have somebody else do it for you. Because again, our goal is not to keep you out of the program. Our goal is to make sure that you're successful the first day that you're in class. So we do that technical assessment, and then you are in the path. You start working with our enrollment team, clarifying your benefits. That's where we will give you your scholarship between, depending on factors. You're either going to get an 80% scholarship or you're going to get a 100% scholarship. So you're going to get a scholarship if you're not, obviously, if you have VA benefits, use those. But hey, you're going to get a scholarship from Code Platoon if you don't have the benefits. And our goal is to make it as inexpensive as possible. And then you're on your way, and there's some pre-work, and you'll do it, and you'll start in the classroom. What happens if you don't get that conditional acceptance. And that usually it happens occasionally. There's, um, um, there's two reasons usually for it. One, you did something wasn't right about your application. Sometimes our instructors will be like, they have trouble accessing your video. Like it could be like your video was set to private, but you didn't send the right link, or like you only did two of the coding exercises in Coder Byte. You're going to get immediate feedback, and you're going to be given the opportunity to fix those. Just errors. Mistakes happen sometime in that. So like, you're not getting a no. You're going to say, hey, here, fix these. And the instructor that's reviewing your application will say, hey, do it by this date, and you're moving forward. Sometimes there are people though that like will go through this process, and the instructor might say, hey, you need to work on your fundamentals of coding a little bit more, like just so that you'll be successful in the classroom. So what happens then, we'll give you links to some resources. Our recruitment team will keep you engaged and say, hey, what can we do to maybe get you into the next cohort? Can we get you, some extra training by going through Intro to Coding Live again? Or, we have instructors that will actually take their personal time and say, hey, I'll work with you. So we don't want to say no. Please do not look at the application process as a yes or no kind of thing. All right. Questions, Kayla, on that? So that's the application process. We want to get you in. I will say we have lots of deadlines on the website, talks about programs either full-time or part-time, remote, and things like that. And we can answer more questions on that, but like that gives you an overview of the application process. Questions, Kayla?
Absolutely. I think that was a really valuable overview. Thank you, Jim. We did get another question. Can scholarships stack?
Scholarship stack. Well, here's the thing. I'll be honest. Like we will they can stack with your VA benefits. So let me address stacking, at least how I think this question goes in two ways. One, say you have GI Bill and you want to use GI Bill to attend Code Platoon. You have to have at least 6.5 months of GI Bill left to cover the cost of attending Code Platoon. So say you don't have that. Say you have 3 months left. All right. You apply the 3 months that you have left on your GI Bill, and then you get a Code Platoon scholarship to fill out the other pieces here. And again, our goal is so that you don't pay anything. So that's one stacking option. We are a little bit different in our scholarship process if you're just funding your education with a scholarship. Our scholarship funds come from a single pool. So while we talk about on the website different categories that people match to, really that pool of dollars is available for everyone. So there's not a need to stack or fund. Almost all of our scholarships are 100% scholarships. There are very few, like everyone can get up to at least 80%, but most of them are 100%. There's a couple little nuances, and really those are individual situations where there's some VA related regulations on that stacking I talked about before. So, but please don't think like, even though we say apply for a scholarship, you know, people we've never said no to a scholarship for somebody. And I've been with this organization for a very long time, 5 years. And those scholarships, we have always been almost 100% or 80%, for out of pocket. So I will say that. There is one thing that I will say related to scholarships that's, well, enrollment. If you do get accepted into the program, everyone is required to make a $500 deposit. All right. And so that is something that you have to make. If you are a scholarship recipient, or when you enroll, if you take the scholarship, or if you enroll with VA benefits, once those are set up, you get that deposit reimbursed. All right. So like, I don't want to be like, hey, when I say there's no out of pocket expense, there is to kind of save your spot. But also, again, we want to work with you if there's a hardship or something that you can't accommodate that $500 deposit. And that really just holds your spot and it says, hey, save this seat for me because I'm coming to Code Platoon. We can work with you on that. But I do want to be upfront and say, hey, like hopefully that's the only out of pocket and you get it reimbursed through this process. Other
Absolutely. A
questions?
follow up on the scholarship question from the same person. An example, I'm working with another nonprofit that works with Code Platoon. They decide to only offer a 50% scholarship. Does Code Platoon offer a scholarship that can stack and cover the remaining 50%?
Yes, because those we don't look at them together. Obviously, we don't have to talk about the organization. If they're think of it this way, if they're awarding you the scholarship, um, that's half of your funding. So you choose to apply that to your co-platoon, however the technical process is. You can say, hey, I need 50% from Code Platoon for the scholarship, and boom, yes, you can stack them that way. It's a great question because we don't have a lot of people using scholarships from other organizations. There are some out there, but most people are just accessing the Code one. So thank you for that question.
Um, Anything else about scholarships or VA benefits before we proceed into probably talking more about the programs?
I do want to talk about the programs because I have exciting news on the programs. So
There's one more
good.
question coming in. I know it takes y'all a little bit to type, so I want to also make sure that we pause long enough that you can get your questions in.
Need to just grab some water.
Yeah, there you go. You've been talking a while.
Talk a lot. Um,
Non-covered costs, is that due upfront or is there payment arrangements?
Not covered costs, as in
I interpret that
what
as
would
the
be
deposit.
so obviously if there's a hardship or something around paying the deposit, we can work through some things on that. I will say, also in covered costs, there is unfortunately GI Bill doesn't cover like a computer. Like a computer is a student's expense, and that's also not covered by scholarships. If you're looking at covered costs of like, hey, I need a computer to do this, we make the technical requirements from a computer as easy and accessible as possible, and we can also provide some discounts on that. One nuance there. Um, for those of you, anyone who has served and has a disability rating, um, VR&E could be a possibility in covering your costs at Coplatoon. It is not a typical education benefit, but if in working with your VR&E counselor, um, the we can work with them and they can cover additional costs like that. Okay, so you're talking about that 80%. Um, yes, we can work with you on payment arrangements on that. And our goal is that 80% is the rare case. Um, I will say that. There's only some weird technical things where that applies. So most of those scholarships are 100%. But if there is a hardship, um, again, our goal is to get you in this program. We will figure out a way to work through it. We're not going to make you sign a funky loan agreement that's going to charge you interest and things like that. We will work through if you have to pay that extra 20%, $1 a year for the next 300 years, we're fine with that. But we try not to have that happen. We find other ways to cover that for you and work with you. That's why everybody's plan is individual. And that's not a bullshit line either. Like it's not a salesy line. It's the truth. So, what else, Kayla?
Absolutely. That was for that area of questions. But do just want to Oh, here we go. If Code Platoon is being done as a skill bridge, does that still use your GI Bill, or can it be used with military TA funds?
So, good question. Um, we do scholarships for SkillBridge students. It's the best way for a SkillBridge. Yes, you could use your GI Bill, and that really comes into play. Like if you wanted to, if your command let you attend in person, if you use your GI Bill to attend in person, you can get your housing allowance, and things like that, which is more beneficial to you because scholarships cover just tuition. But like if you're attending remotely and you're staying on base and you don't have those costs, say you want a scholarship because it'll cover all your costs on those things. The key thing on SkillBridge though is making sure that the program dates fit within your 180, and I know some commands are pressing that down to 120. Our full-time program is the only one that's eligible for SkillBridge, and it's 105 days long. We can make it 120 for you if you want the extra time, but the core program is 105, and so making sure that that's in your SkillBridge. Don't worry about the finances. If you want to use GI Bill, you can. If not, use a scholarship. It's not going to cost. Scholarship covering your tuition is no money out of anybody's pocket. So
Thank you, Jim. We got a follow-up question about GI Bill. So does GI Bill usually cover the full tuition? I think it might be worth just taking a
yes,
step back and kind of going over how GI Bill works, as I
yes.
anticipate there'll probably be more questions.
It's a great question. And GI Bill at Code Platoon works two different ways. One, whether you're attending in person or if you're attending remotely. So let me talk about GI Bill if you're attending in person. And that means that you've decided wherever you are in the world that you are going to come to Chicago for 15 weeks in our immersive program to attend Code Platoon. If you do that, GI Bill covers all of your tuition as long as you have about 6.5 months of eligibility remaining on your GI Bill. So if you've used some of it, obviously we have to look through that and figure out how much you have available. If you attend in person with your GI Bill, you are also eligible for your housing stipend, which I think is based on Chicago. It's $2,600 a month, right? So that's if you attend in person. You can use GI Bill to attend remotely, and that could be either for the full-time program, the remote component, or all of our evening and weekend programs, be it DevOps or full stack. Those are only delivered remotely. So to use your GI Bill remotely, it falls under a different category of GI Bill, and that's for certification programs. So you can use your GI Bill benefit, and it will cover 100% of the tuition that you have for Code Platoon. The way that the way that you access that is different, but again, it's no out of pocket on your piece. The biggest difference on that is if you're attending remotely, GI Bill will not provide your housing stipend as part of the GI Bill reimbursement, but we will. If you're using the GI certification option to attend remotely, if you're in the program, you will receive a housing stipend um, that covers 15 weeks of cost. So that $2,600 a month at the Chicago rate for 15 weeks. If you're attending, so that covers the full-time program. If you're attending remote, sorry, not remote, lots of terms here. If you're attending part-time, evening and weekends, you get that program is 28. You still get the same amount, 3 months worth of housing stipend because you're not attending full time. And you get that as a one lump payment once the VA, whatever, and that's a check from Code Platoon that comes to you. So you don't have to apply for it. If we know that you're on the certification program, boom, once that transaction is processed by the VA, you get a check for your housing stipend. It's equivalent to a housing stipend from Code Platoon. So you still get the same benefits whether you attend in person or not with a housing stipend, but it's, in person, you're getting the housing stipend from the VA. It's going right to your direct deposit. Monthly, you have to certify. If you are doing it remotely, you're getting a check from Code Platoon, the equivalent of the housing stipend.
Awesome. Thank you for that clarification, Jim. We had a follow-up question about SkillBridge. Are there any Code Platoon programs that utilize the full 180 days?
There are not. So our core program, so the program that is eligible for SkillBridge is our full stack software engineering immersive program, the 15-week program. And so that's 105 days. And then the other piece is, for SkillBridge only students, we have a additional 3 weeks of class that's called Foundations of Program that we can add to customize the curriculum for you that takes it to 120 days. I will tell you why. One, it is hard to get, our cohorts start on certain days. We are a small program, so like these immersive programs, we offer them 3 times a year. So we have to make sure first and foremost that fits your window. And so it would be an act of Congress, to make sure that SkillBridge lined up right with your start date, to make utilization of your 180 days. I'll also be really straightforward. There has been over the last 2 years SkillBridge is a DoD program. Each branch of service and almost each separate base manages their program different. And I will tell you, the trend has been from on-base commanders to less than that 180 days to 120. All of your participation in SkillBridge to go to the Code Platoon or any SkillBridge program is at the approval of your base commander. And unfortunately, we have seen, this is just our feedback, my feedback, lots of pushback from some commanders in terms of dates, wanting people to stay active on their bases for days, and things like that. We've probably seen more commands turning down SkillBridge due to staffing levels and readiness over the last year. I'm just being honest. So getting to that 180 days is tough. We can do things to help you maximize it, but 120 is typically where we end up. We're not opposed to looking at something even more custom for somebody, but our experience is that 120 is kind of the sweet spot.
Thank you. That was a good answer. Another scholarship related question. Do the scholarships include housing for attending in person?
They do not. So the scholarships do not attend in person. But let me take that back. There are some creative ways that we can have that happen. You can, but no, let me take that back. There's no housing does not become part of the scholarships. There are really rare circumstances, but for the most part, in 99% of the time, scholarships do not include housing. And I stumbled through that answer. I apologize.
I think we got there in the end. Unfortunately, scholarships don't include housing for attending in person. We wish
Right.
they could. It just isn't where we are.
Other questions? I know we typically try to keep these about 30 minutes, and we've gone past that, but we're always happy to stay longer and answer any questions. I will also say here, my email is in my signature. Feel free to reach out to me if you have questions. Many of you over the past, if you've been involved with Code Platoon or looking at this for a little bit, may have interacted with Greg Drobny. He was our recruitment manager. Greg has moved on to some other things, and we do have a new recruitment manager named Danny Marcano who's joined us. So he'll be a name. I'm always happy to be your contact. Kayla's always happy to be somebody's contact on things. But Danny will also be. You might start seeing his name as you interact with us back and forth.
All right, thank you, Jim. We've got a couple questions about the job search after the program, so that's
Yep.
really great. That's something we definitely like to talk about. So let's start with the more open-ended one. How does career services help virtual students find a job?
Great question. So I will say this: one of the best things about um, Code Platoon, obviously, you're going to learn in-demand skills, is our career services team. They're small but mighty. And I say this, unlike other programs, they understand the military to tech transition better than anybody because that's all we do. We're not talking to other people who are coming into tech from different things. So one, everybody's story is unique and they can help you tell that. But two, we work hard. We have, you know, you know, currently about 80% of people get a job within 6 months of graduating. I'll tell you what, that number sucks to us because we do better than that. And part of that is reflecting of the job market, but that is a huge number, especially when you look compared to other things. We, what we have is we have a network of employers that work with us. There are corporate partners and hiring partners. Some of them are local, some of them are national, and they're major companies like Travelers Insurance. Travelers Insurance in the last 3 years has hired 9 of our graduates, and those people are thriving. It sounds like a lot, but we've only had 700 graduates in 10 years. We're a small program. Chase Bank in the banking services. A lot of our graduates end up in financial services. There's plenty of job opportunities there. So the one thing that you have in going to Code Platoon is that we have this network. Travelers was just telling us they opened up um, 9 jobs in Florida at their Florida thing. So most of those are remote. I'll be honest, we're seeing a lot of change back because maybe during the pandemic, all jobs were going to 100% remote. You know, there's changes in that the workplace, but there's still remote jobs out there. So we have a national network of employers that we plug you into. Um, you know, Even if they're apprenticeships, paid apprenticeships when you graduate, you know, you know, talking with alumni the other day. We have people, like Airbnb. We have people at Google. We have people at AWS. So there's plenty of opportunities, and you benefit from the fact that we have these relationships, and they kind of already opens the door. So you're not cold calling. And the other thing I'm going to tell you, like I'm bragging on our career services team, they're with you for life. They want you to and be with you to get you the first job. But if like 5 years from now you're looking for a job, you can come back and you can talk to our career services team and help us update my resume, help prep me for an interview. So they're going to be your partners for life. You might get sick of them because they will, like, especially on your job search, they will keep you in line as you're looking for a job. They will motivate you.
Absolutely. The career services team is very organized in helping folks get jobs after the program, which flows really well into the next question. Is there job search assistance or guidance towards the end of the program or internship opportunities? As you've already heard a little bit, yes, we'll go into more
Yes.
detail now.
Yes. So in addition to so the focus of your curriculum, whether you're attending the immersive program or the evening and weekend, is obviously learning in-demand tech skills. And we're always changing and updating those skills based on what employers are telling us that they're hiring. So that is the first key to know, and that's important because we use that employer feedback to shape what you're learning in the classroom. Our curriculum changes on a regular basis. But while you're in the program, we also have a secondary curriculum that everybody goes through. We call it Beyond Tech, but that's where they start working with you in the program to, you know, develop your resume. We have resume coaches that will work with you. We have interview prep sessions, whiteboarding sessions. If you want, you can even have a professional mentor that's going to help guide you through the process. There's a negotiating skills class, and how do you negotiate your salary and all those kind of things. So that starts while you're still a student. It accelerates when you graduate. The minute you graduate, you have the option to go into like it's an accountability group with other graduates that are all going through the process so that you're there to support each other. You're share resources and knowledge. Our career services team has regular employer information sessions where companies are coming in and saying, "Hey, we're looking for software engineers. Come learn about us." So it starts, it continues to get a job. And like I said, You want them to, they will continue with you forever on things.
Absolutely. And if you get a job, you can always come back if you want to get another job later. Like we're not sending you out into the first job and saying bye. Like you're a part of the Code Platoon community forever, for as long as you're willing to communicate with us. Next question. The job opportunities, are they offered via communication like email or a proprietary job board?
Good question. We don't have a proprietary job board posting, but as part of the accountability groups, every graduate has a customized plan. And so that sets up not only here we're feeding you jobs through our career services team, and that's different. Like job board, you just look on it like this looks like it's the right job for me. It's not a consultative approach. Our career service team is only going to give you a job where they think that your qualifications are there. Because you know, we don't want to be a cold calling. We want to help you get there. So they're going to funnel jobs for you. They're also going to tell you of other opportunities that we hear of that you might want to be a part of, or it might be a career fair or something else. But there's not a job board where you're just picking things from, because that's just everybody's picking it. They're trying to make sure that you're getting matched to the right jobs. They want to understand not only they know the skills that you learned in the classroom, but what do you want to do with it? Hey, I want to be a game designer, or no, hey, I want to be you're learning full stack, but I really want to be on the back end. I want to do this. I live in Hawaii. I want to work remotely. They understand all those nuances, and they're out there looking for jobs and bringing you the opportunities. They're talking to our contacts and bringing you the opportunities too. But they'll also encourage you to look for things and give you resources on things to look for that might not be public resources.
Great answer. I think we've caught up to all the questions, but since we had a whole bunch, I'm just going to go over them again and make sure we didn't skip anyone. All right, we are up to speed now. Does anyone have any other questions? I know we covered a lot of information today, and I want to be mindful of everyone's time, but we can continue on.
So that's great. I think we'll wrap up there. So Kayla, keep watching just in case anything pops up. The biggest thing is like we understand that each one of you is on a different journey. How you want to pay for this, what you want to learn, where you want to get a job. All right. Um, we are a small, maybe we're a little arrogant. We are small, but we're really good at what we do. And what we do is take people from the military community, teach them in-demand skills, hopefully with nothing out of your pocket in terms of a cost, and get you a job. That's why we exist. It's not a sales thing. It's not a scam. Um, all those kind of things. And I know there's plenty of those out here, but I encourage you guys, if you haven't started your application, even just do part one, even if you still don't know what you want to do. And even if you want to do this, I encourage you to fill out part one. You don't have to fill out part two ever, or you can wait to do that. And then let's start engaging in a conversation. Then we can help you figure out your questions. This has been a great overview. It's also been a lot of information, and I apologize that you had to hear me talk for 45 minutes. Kayla has to hear that all day long. Luckily, you only had to hear it for this 45 minutes. So, um, question, what's the questions? I think it's about the immersive program,
Yeah,
Kayla.
how is the immersive program structured? The site just says Monday through Friday for 8-ish hours range.
Okay. Good question. All of our programs, regardless, first the key point, we operate on Central Time, and it's a synchronous environment. If you're in person or if you're remote, you're learning at the same time. So our classroom operates Monday through Friday on the full-time program, 8:30 to 5:30. The day is structured. You have a lecture in the morning, and then we structure the teams unlike a classroom environment, more like how you're going to be working in teams in the actual workplace. So you'll be on product teams working together with 4 or 5 people on your projects and your solutions and things like that. Same thing. Our evening and weekend program is the same thing, but it's just divided up differently. 5:30 to 8:30 or 9:30. Sometimes they go longer. 3 days during the week and then all day on Saturday. So that's how the program's structured. It's done that way because, like, hey, we have active duty service members on SkillBridge who may be stationed in Germany and they're joining us, or they're in Japan, they're 14 hours ahead. We're all in the classroom at the same time. It's a little bit to get used to because you have people in person and you have people on Zoom and you have instructors, but it works and it's very representative of how you're going to be working in the real world on software engineering teams at, at an employer. So it's purposely structured that way.
Absolutely. I think that was our last question. So thank you all again for joining us today. As you know, this session was recorded and we'll get the recording to you by the end of this week. So keep an eye out for that. If you need to review anything, Jim and I are also here if you have any further questions later on. Our email addresses are just our first names at codeplatoon.org. So Jim at codeplatoon.org or Kayla at codeplatoon.org. So feel free to reach out to either or both of us at any time with any additional questions. We got one last question coming in down at the wire. Will the instruction last the whole time? This is a follow-up to the immersive program structure.
Yes, in the immersive program, your day is 8:30 to 5:30. Instruction, like how things, there is some flexibility, like if you have a doctor's appointment, like the days are structured. Usually it's a lecture in the morning for 2 hours, and then there's project time where you're working in pair programming. But the class hours are 8:30 to 5:30 every day. But like, hey, if you have a doctor's appointment, we can make arrangements and things like that. Those are out of it. But think of it as it's a full-time job, 8:30 to 5:30 for those 15 weeks.
Awesome. That is all. So thank you all again. Have a great rest of your week. Thank you, Jim, for all the information you provided today.